The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow across our cozy kitchen. The aroma of garlic and rosemary wafted through the air as I stirred the sauce simmering on the stove, my heart fluttering with excitement. Tonight was our anniversary, a milestone I had eagerly anticipated. I wanted everything to be perfect for Mark. The table was set with our finest china, adorned with delicate candles that flickered gently, their soft light creating an intimate ambience. Just a little more time, I murmured to myself, glancing at the clock. I could hardly contain my anticipation. I had spent the entire day preparing this dinner, his favorite meal, a bottle of wine chilling in the fridge, and a decadent chocolate cake waiting patiently on the counter. I picked up the sprigs of fresh basil, tearing them gently between my fingers. The scent brought back memories of our early days together, filled with laughter and love. As I placed the basil into the sauce, the doorbell rang, pulling me from my reverie. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and hurried to the door, excitement quickly shifting to curiosity. When I opened it, I was greeted by Jessica, my sister-in-law. Her usual vivaciousness seemed dimmed, replaced by a look of vulnerability that tugged at my heart. "Hey, Sarah," she said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I hope it's okay that I dropped by." "Of course, come in." I stepped aside, letting her enter. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's just been a rough week. I didn't want to be alone." I nodded, understanding. "Do you want to talk about it?" I was just about to finish dinner. Jessica's eyes lit up at the mention of food. "Dinner sounds amazing. I could use some comfort food right now." We moved to the kitchen, and I poured her a glass of wine. As we chatted, the conversation flowed seamlessly between us, memories of our childhood spilling forth like the wine in our glasses. I found solace in her presence, the laughter we shared momentarily distracting me from the anticipation of Mark's arrival. "Remember that summer at Grandma's?" Jessica chuckled, her eyes sparkling. "We built that ridiculous tree house and nearly fell out of it." I laughed, recalling the splintered wood and our feeble attempts at construction. "And we thought we were going to be the next great architects." The warmth of nostalgia enveloped us as we reminisced, and I felt a connection deepening between us, one that had always been there but had now become a lifeline for both of us. Just as the conversation grew more intimate, the front door clicked open and Mark stepped inside, his presence shifting the atmosphere in an instant. "Hey, babe," he called out cheerfully, but his voice faltered slightly as he caught sight of Jessica. The smile on his face faded, replaced by a flicker of confusion. "Mark, you're home early," I said, trying to maintain the lightheartedness of the moment. I could sense the tension in the air, a subtle shift as he processed the scene before him. "Yeah, I wrapped up some things at the office," he replied, his gaze darting between me and Jessica. "What's going on?" "Just catching up," I said, my heart racing. "I thought Jessica could use some company." He forced a smile, but I could see a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Right, good to see you, Jess." His tone was cordial, yet there was an underlying current of tension that made me uneasy. "Good to see you too, Mark," Jessica responded, her voice steady. But I could sense the unspoken words hanging in the air, the electricity between us three. I turned back to the stove, focusing on the sauce, but my mind was racing. I wanted tonight to be about us, Mark and me, but Jessica's unexpected arrival had thrown a wrench into my carefully laid plans. As I stirred the sauce, I couldn't shake the feeling that the evening had shifted into something I hadn't anticipated, the air thick with unvoiced thoughts and emotions. Mark leaned against the counter, watching us both with a hint of apprehension. I could almost see the gears turning in his mind, questions forming behind his eyes. But for now, we all stood in a delicate balance, unaware of how this night would unravel. Each of us cloaked in our own secrets, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The aroma of garlic and herbs hung in the air as we gathered around the dining table. I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface, a strange energy that seemed to pulse between Mark, Jessica, and me. The candles flickered gently, casting soft shadows on the walls, but the warmth of the moment felt distant. I could see Jessica's eyes darting towards me, her lips curling into a secretive smile that I found impossible to resist. "Everything looks amazing, Sarah." "You really outdid yourself," Mark said, his voice laced with an enthusiasm that felt forced. He lifted his glass, looking between me and Jessica. "To family," he added, clinking his glass with ours. "To family," we echoed, but I could see the way his smile faltered as he caught the lingering glance Jessica shot my way. My heart raced. Was I the only one who noticed the charged atmosphere? As we dug into the meal, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were treading on thin ice. Mark was engaged with the food, but I could sense his unease. I caught Jessica's eye again, and this time, our gazes locked for a heartbeat longer, an unspoken understanding passing between us. I could see the way her cheeks flushed, and I wondered if she felt it too. The thrill of being so close, yet so far from the truth. "Do you remember that summer we spent at the lake?" Jessica asked, breaking the silence that hung heavily around us. "We built that ridiculous fort out of branches and blankets." Mark chuckled, his eyes flickering with amusement. "I remember you two trying to keep the boys away from it. You were fierce, Sarah." I smiled at the memory, but there was an edge to it now. "I think we were just trying to protect our territory," I said, my voice laced with a playful challenge. Jessica laughed, and the sound sent warmth flooding through me. After dinner, Mark excused himself to take a phone call in the other room, leaving Jessica and me alone. The moment he stepped away, the air felt lighter, charged with possibilities. I turned to Jessica, my heart pounding. "I didn't mean for tonight to feel so complicated," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. She shifted closer, her eyes shimmering with vulnerability. It's been so long since I've felt this connected to someone. I didn't expect it to be you." "I know what you mean," I admitted, my heart racing. "It's strange, isn't it? How quickly we can find solace in each other." Jessica nodded, her breath catching slightly as she leaned in. "I felt so lost since the breakup. Coming here, being with you, it feels like a breath of fresh air." I felt a surge of emotion at her words. "You're not alone, Jess. I'm here for you," I said, reaching out to squeeze her hand gently. The warmth of her skin against mine sent a thrill through me that I couldn't ignore. Just then, Mark re-entered the room, his presence a sudden weight that pulled me back from the edge of something I didn't know I wanted. I withdrew my hand instinctively, the moment shattered. Mark glanced between us, a flicker of something like suspicion crossing his face. But he brushed it off with a smile. "What are you two laughing about?" he asked, his voice light, but his eyes searching. "Just reminiscing," I replied, forcing a smile that felt strained. "Old childhood memories, sounds like fun," he said, a hint of reluctance in his tone. He moved to the other side of the table, pouring himself another glass of wine. "I'm glad you two have each other." The way he said, "each other," made my stomach twist. I wanted to tell him that this bond was deeper than he realized, that it held secrets we weren't ready to share. But instead, I offered a weak smile, feeling the weight of our shared intimacy hanging in the air like an unspoken truth. As the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark was beginning to sense that there was more between Jessica and me than he could see. His laughter was strained, and his eyes darted between us, searching for something he couldn't quite articulate. I felt a pang of guilt. Was I betraying him by simply enjoying this moment with his sister-in-law? The night ended with a forced lightness, but as Jessica left, I could feel the connection lingering in the air between us. I had crossed a line, though I wasn't sure where it led. Mark, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the calm surface, wrapped his arms around me, and I couldn't help but wonder if he would ever truly understand the complexities of what was unfolding. As the week passed, I found myself entangled in a web of emotions that I never anticipated. Each stolen moment with Jessica felt like a forbidden secret, a thrill that both exhilarated and terrified me. I could hardly concentrate on anything else. Even mundane tasks became overshadowed by thoughts of her. One afternoon, sitting in my kitchen, I could still feel the warmth of Jessica's laughter hanging in the air from our last meeting. She had come over on a whim, A simple coffee turned into an exchange of dreams and fears. I had never shared so much with anyone, and the intimacy of those moments felt electric. You know, Sarah, she had said, brushing her hair back with a playful smile. I never thought I could feel this way again after Mark's brother broke my heart. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I get it. Sometimes it feels like we're just floating, trying to find our way back to solid ground. I could see the flicker of understanding in her eyes. The way she leaned closer, as if the distance between us was a magnet pulling us together. But with every shared secret, I felt a growing unease. Mark had been acting oddly suspicious lately, his glances lingering a moment too long, his questions probing. Are you all right, Sarah? You seem distant, he had asked during dinner one night, his brow furrowed with concern. I had forced a smile, reassuring him it was just work stress. But inside, my heart raced with the fear of being discovered. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was beginning to suspect something was amiss. When I glanced at my phone one evening, I noticed a few messages from Jessica that I hadn't deleted. Their content innocent enough, but loaded with implications. Can't wait to see you again, the last one read. I quickly shoved my phone away, anxiety gripping me. Then came the evening when Mark was scheduled for a late meeting. The moment I heard the door click shut, I felt both relief and excitement. My pulse quickened at the thought of Jessica arriving. When she walked in, her presence lit up the room, and I couldn't help but smile. Hey you, she said, her voice a soothing balm. I brought your favorite wine. I took the bottle from her hands, our fingers brushing against each other, sending a jolt of electricity through me. You know me too well, I replied, trying to sound playful. But I could feel the tension swirling around us, thick and palpable. As the evening unfolded, we poured the wine and sank into our familiar rhythm of laughter and shared stories. But as the wine flowed, so did our inhibitions. We moved from the kitchen to the living room, the ambience shifting from casual to charged. I could feel the air between us thickening, each glance lingering a moment longer, each laugh echoing with unspoken desires. Sarah, Jessica said softly, her gaze piercing into mine. Can I ask you something? Of course, I replied, my heart racing. Do you ever think about what it would be like if we didn't have to hide? Her question caught me off guard, and I felt a rush of heat rise to my cheeks. I don't know, I stammered, looking away. It's complicated. Complicated or just scary? Her words hung in the air like a challenge, and I found myself drawn to her, my heart pounding. Before I knew it, she leaned in, her lips brushing against mine. It was a soft kiss at first, tentative, but then it deepened, igniting a fire within me that I hadn't realized was there. I could feel the world around us fading away, leaving only the two of us in that moment. But just as I surrendered to the heat of our connection, the sound of a key turning in the door shattered our blissful oblivion. Panic surged through me as I pulled away, my heart racing. Mark, I gasped, fear gripping my throat. Jessica's eyes widened in alarm, and I could see the same terror reflected in her face. We were caught in a moment that could change everything, our secret teetering on the edge of exposure, and I was paralyzed by the weight of my choices. I was lost in the moment, my heart racing as I felt Jessica's warmth against me. The kiss was electric, igniting a fire within me that I hadn't known existed. I had never imagined I could feel this way about my sister-in-law, but here we were, crossing an invisible line I had never thought we would approach. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, and my heart dropped. In an instant, the world around me came crashing down. Mark stood there, frozen in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. His expression morphed from confusion to anger in a heartbeat. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. Mark, I stammered, the words failing me as I tried to comprehend the reality of the situation. What the hell is going on here? His voice was low, almost a growl. I could see the betrayal and hurt etched on his face, a look I never wanted to witness. Jessica stepped back as well, her eyes darting between Mark and me, panic flooding her features. Mark, please let me explain, I pleaded, desperate to diffuse the tension. Explain what? That you and her, he pointed an accusatory finger at Jessica. How could you do this to me, to us? The weight of his words crashed down on me, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. I had never intended for our friendship to spiral into something like this. It's not what you think, Mark. It was a moment of weakness, I cried, my voice breaking. A moment of weakness, he scoffed, disbelief coating his words. You're kissing my sister in our house, Sarah. How do you even think that sounds? I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as shame washed over me. I glanced at Jessica, who looked equally horrified, her hands trembling at her sides. I was lonely, Mark, I finally admitted, my voice trembling. You've been so distant lately. I felt like I was losing you, and Jessica was here for me. We got carried away. I could see the fury in his eyes, and I knew my words weren't enough to heal the wound I had inflicted. Carried away, he echoed, his voice rising. You think that justifies this? You betrayed me with my own sister. His fists were clenched at his sides, and I could feel the tension radiating off him like heat from a fire. You have no idea how much this hurts. I know, I cried, tears spilling down my cheeks as I fought to make him understand. But it wasn't just about Jessica, it was about us. I felt abandoned, Mark. I thought you didn't want me anymore. The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. Mark's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. But it was quickly replaced by anger. So that's it? You decide to jump into bed with her? You think that's how you fix things? Stop it, Jessica interjected, her voice rising and a mix of desperation and fear. This is not just Sarah's fault. I have feelings for her too, and I didn't plan this. You need to understand that. Mark's incredulous gaze turned to Jessica, and for a moment, I saw the realization dawn on him. You have feelings for her? The betrayal in his voice was palpable, as if he couldn't believe the depths of this situation. Yes, I do, she shouted, tears glistening in her eyes. But this isn't how I wanted it to happen. I never meant to hurt you, Mark. Then why did you come here? Why did you encourage this? He shot back, his anger flaring. I didn't encourage anything, Jessica exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. I was just trying to be a friend. We were both lost, Mark interrupted, his voice rising again. You both have lost your minds. Do you realize what this means? You both have betrayed me in the worst possible way. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I had never wanted this to happen. I had never wanted to hurt Mark, but I couldn't deny the connection I felt with Jessica. The chaos of this moment felt surreal, as if I were trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Mark, please, I sobbed, my heart breaking. I never wanted to hurt you, I love you, but I also care for Jessica. I don't know how this happened, but it did. I'm so sorry. He shook his head, denying my words as if they were poison. You think saying sorry is enough? This isn't just a simple mistake, Sarah. This is betrayal, and I can't look at either of you right now. With that, Mark turned on his heel and stormed out of the house, leaving me standing there, shattered and confused. I felt a part of my soul break away with him, leaving only the chaos and turmoil of emotions swirling in the air. Jessica stood beside me, her face pale, mirroring my shock and heartbreak. What have we done? I whispered, the weight of the reality settling heavily upon us. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of the world pressing down on my chest. My thoughts spiraled in relentless circles, each one a sharp reminder of the choices I had made. Mark's face flashed in my mind, twisted in pain and betrayal, followed by Jessica's, eyes filled with a mix of longing and regret. I had shattered the trust of the two people I cared about the most, and the guilt gnawed at me like a persistent hunger. Why did I let it get this far? I whispered to myself, my voice barely above a murmur. The room felt stifling, the walls closing in as I replayed our last moments together. I had wanted comfort, a connection that had been missing for so long in my marriage. But somewhere along the way, that innocent craving had morphed into something far more dangerous. I picked up my phone, hesitating for a moment before scrolling through my messages. There was a thread from Jessica, filled with laughter and flirty emojis, a stark contrast to the painful silence that now filled the space between us. I could almost hear her voice, light and teasing, but underlined with an intensity that made my heart race. "We can't keep doing this," I had told her once. But those words felt like lies now, a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of control. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was Mark's best friend Alex reaching out to him. I had met Alex a few times, always finding him easy to talk to. But now, I felt a pang of sympathy for him. He was caught in the fallout of our mess, just like everyone else. I imagined Mark pouring his heart out to Alex, anger and hurt spilling forth like an overfilled cup. And I felt a fresh wave of guilt wash over me. "Why did you betray me, Sarah?" I could almost hear Mark's voice laced with disbelief. The question echoed in my mind, and I couldn't find a satisfactory answer. I loved him, didn't I? Yet the thrill of my connection with Jessica had ignited a flame within me that I never knew existed. Just then, my phone rang. It was Jessica. My heart raced as I answered, her voice on the other end instantly soothing yet electrifying. "Sarah," she breathed. I can't stop thinking about what happened. I'm so sorry for everything." "Me too," I replied, my voice trembling. "I don't know how we got here." "I do," she said softly. "We were both looking for something we weren't getting. It started out innocent, but it turned into something so much more." I sighed, the weight of her words heavy in the air. "It feels like a dream that turned into a nightmare. I never meant to hurt either of you." "I know," she murmured. "But what do we do now?" "I can't stay here, it's too much." "Leave?" The words sent a shiver down my spine. "You're just going to leave?" "I think it's for the best. I need to give you and Mark space to figure this out. I can't be the reason your marriage falls apart." A lump formed in my throat. "But what about us? What about what we shared?" "Those memories will always be a part of me," she said, her voice cracking. "But right now, I think it's best if we part ways." Tears streamed down my face, a release of the pent-up emotions I had kept hidden. "I don't want to lose you, Jess. You won't lose me. You'll always have a piece of my heart. But it's time for me to go. I hope one day you can forgive me for this." I don't know if I can," I admitted, "but I'll try." "I'll be in touch," she promised, her voice a soothing balm. "And remember, you deserve happiness too." As we ended the call, I felt an emptiness settle in my chest. She was right. I did deserve happiness. But at what cost? I had created a tangled mess of emotions that threatened to consume me. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence deafening. The thrill of forbidden love had woven its way into my life. But now it felt like a ghost, haunting me with memories of laughter and intimacy that had been so easily shattered. I closed my eyes, wishing I could turn back time. I wanted to feel the warmth of Mark's embrace again, to hear him laugh without the shadow of betrayal looming over us. But I knew that was impossible. I had to face the consequences of my actions. And the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. "Tell me about how you felt when you were with Jessica." Initially, it was exhilarating, I admitted, a bittersweet smile creeping onto my face. We shared secrets, dreams, and desires that I had buried for so long. But then, it turned into something I never expected. I felt alive, but also terrified. "Terrified of what?" she prompted. "Of losing Mark, of ruining my marriage, of the judgment that would come if anyone found out." I replied, the memories flooding back. I could almost hear the echoes of our laughter, the way Jessica's touch sent shivers down my spine. But then, I remembered Mark's face when he caught us, and my heart sank. By the time I left the therapy session, the sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. I made my way home, my mind racing with thoughts of my past and what lay ahead. As I walked through the front door, I felt a sense of resolve. I needed to clean out the remnants of my old life, the things that reminded me of what had been lost. I started in the living room, sorting through boxes of old photographs and keepsakes. As I rummaged through a dusty box tucked away in the corner, I stumbled upon a letter. It was old, the paper yellowed and brittle. My heart raced as I recognized Jessica's handwriting. Curiosity piqued, I carefully unfolded the letter, my hands shaking. As I read the words, my breath caught in my throat. The letter revealed a shocking secret about Mark, a hidden affair he had years ago, before we even met. Jessica had written about how she discovered the truth and how it haunted her ever since. "Sarah," the letter began, "there's something you need to know about Mark that changes everything. I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't keep this a secret any longer. He had an affair years ago with someone I knew. He was heartbroken when it ended, but it left scars on him that he never fully addressed." My mind raced as I processed the implications of Jessica's words. The betrayal I had felt from her and Mark paled in comparison to the possibility that my husband had been unfaithful long before I ever crossed a line with Jessica. A whirlwind of emotions washed over me. Anger, confusion, and a strange sense of vindication. Was this why Mark had always been so closed off, so emotionally distant? As the last words of the letter echoed in my mind,